We're here today in Miami with Transak founder Sami Start, where the company has established its US-based headquarters. If you're not familiar, Transak is one of the leading Web3 payments infrastructure companies to help users onboard globally through integrations with wallets, exchanges, and dApps. With the US being a hub for the crypto scene, we're here to discuss how the market's looking, why Miami matters, and how Transak is building for the future. Let's start off here in Miami. This is Transak's US-based headquarters. What's it like building here in Miami, and how's the energy, and does it affect the overall market?
I love Miami. So firstly, it's just a beautiful place to live. The weather's great. I'm very happy living here. All of my colleagues and friends are very happy here. So that doesn't hurt. I think also it has a great crypto scene. So I'm very connected with crypto people here. Like there's people from Maple Finance, Propi, Paxos, Ripple. There's also some great VCs like Founders Fund, Coin Fund, all of these kind of guys. And yeah, I think it's a great place to build a career. A lot of people are also moving here. And I find that the types of people who tend to move here are maybe a little bit different minded, right? So like the typical place if you're ambitious in your career is I'm going to go to like New York or I'm going to go to San Francisco. But the people who come to Miami are a little bit maybe more different, more open-minded, and also like very smart and very interesting and very ambitious. So I love it. I don't see moving from here, and we're looking to hire more and more here and grow the team here. So we love it.
Amazing. That's great to hear. And it's been a while since we last checked in. What's new within the team and with the overall company?
So what's new with Transak? So last year was a good year for us. We grew our revenues around 3x in the year. Wow. So quite a healthy growth. Can't complain about that. We're also starting to see a lot of volumes from stablecoins and more like infrastructure type deals. And then on top of that, we're also starting to grow the team this year, and we're starting to enter some new markets, and both geographical markets and also new types of markets in terms of stable coins and in terms of Web2 fintechs and that kind of stuff. So lots of interesting expansion happening. And then, as always, we're always just improving the fundamentals. So Transak is a fiat on-off ramp, which means that we allow people to buy and sell crypto inside apps. And the fundamentals for us is like improving conversion rates, bringing down costs, making our delivery times more consistent, and just improving the overall experience and improving the developer experience. So we're just constantly hammering on that and improving that over time as well.
Amazing. And you mentioned that you have a lot of new and exciting things going on. Are you working with any new partners, or are there any coming soon that we should know about?
Yeah, so some interesting ones over the last few months is Uniswap. We announced a partnership with them, which is really exciting. Uniswap obviously being the biggest DEX, and fiat on-off ramps plus DEX is just a dream come true. Then also Binance US is a nice partner for us, and we're really excited to be working with them. And then Phantom Wallet is another great new partner. I think by now we're in pretty much all of the major wallets, and we're really quite dominant in terms of our distribution in that space. So yeah, those are some of the partners. Overall, we have more than 400 active partners now. So it's hard for me to even name every partner these days, unlike I used to be maybe a few years ago. And we have some really exciting announcements coming up in the next few months as well.
Amazing. And then with the US booming in the crypto market,
Yeah.
us being the new hub, are most of your new partnerships coming out of the US, or is it still a global effort?
So Transak is kind of interesting because we're like a B2B2C company. So we have more than 400 active partners. We also have millions of users who use us through those partners, right? So you might be one of those users through, like, let's say a MetaMask or a Trust Wallet or something like that. So in terms of our users and our volume, we're more than half US based. So the US is by far our biggest market, and we see that growing more and more. In terms of partners, a lot of the teams we work with tend to be very international, right? It's just crypto. So we're seeing teams coming from all over. But again, US is like the most dominant in terms of where the partners are coming from. And we're also leaning heavily into that market. And we're also increasingly starting to speak with some more US-based fintechs who, unlike crypto, are more like concentrated on the US market as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
And there's a lot happening right now in the US market. We have tariffs, we have stock market prices tanking with
Yeah.
political unrest.
Intense.
Has any of that affected the crypto market from your perspective or Transact directly?
Yes. So in terms of tariffs and what's going on, the overall crypto market volumes, if you look at the general exchange volumes, are kind of down in the last few months, just because the macroeconomic environment is somewhat depressed. And Transact has suffered a little bit from that, which is just normal. Whenever like global volumes are down, we kind of tend to go down a little bit. Although Q1 for us was still, it was still around flat, maybe like slightly growing in revenue in Q1. But the macroeconomic environment has dampened that. It doesn't concern me at all in terms of like the long-term vision of where we're headed. You know, I think it doesn't change anything about the fact that blockchain is a new internet, and it's like a huge trend. In terms of the regulations, it's extremely positive, and the stablecoin bill that's coming up is extremely positive. We're starting to see major institutions and even states of the US issuing stablecoins, and that's extremely positive for us. And we've noticed that in terms of increased interest from partners and big companies who want to do stuff with stablecoins, and also in terms of investors and overall investor sentiment. I think stablecoins now is very much like the hot thing in the market.
Yes.
And for good reason, because what we're basically talking about is rewiring the entire financial system on stablecoin rails. And what's going to happen is that issuing stablecoins is going to become very commonplace with the stablecoin bill, right? So you're going to have Fidelity, JP Morgan, all of these guys issuing stablecoins, and to some extent they'll have closed off ecosystems where you can get onto the stablecoin inside, let's say, your JP Morgan app or your Fidelity app. But the second you start to have non-custodial access to stablecoins, that's when you start to need third-party on-off ramps like us. And so we're seeing a lot of demand. We're seeing a lot of big companies coming with RFP processes to integrate us to do stablecoin on-off ramps and infrastructure with us. So it's extremely positive, and we're projecting exciting growth for this year based on that.
And with the new stablecoin bill and the US election only a few months away, do you see the regulatory landscape becoming easier for the crypto industry along that same path?
Yeah, I mean, already we're starting to see banks starting to open up to crypto companies, and that's like the first sign, and that's really where the regulators were doing the choke point on the crypto industry. There was never any like explicit regulation, and we didn't feel any kind of problems from FinCEN or the SEC. I know there are other companies like maybe Consensus or Coinbase who had like SEC lawsuits, but
not with Transact, no SEC.
We didn't have that. Yeah, knock on wood. Yeah.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, I don't see that happening now as well. So we didn't really have the issues was mainly with the banks, and we are starting to see the banks open up more now. And I think that the banks are going to want to move fast on this because there's a really big industry for them to capture, and I'm sure their revenue teams want to capture, you know, business from companies like us. And so we're starting to see that open up. And then in the longer run, just clarity around like what is a stablecoin and who can issue them. I think there's a lot of institutional capital and plans that are waiting on the sidelines, and a lot of these big banks and financial institutions in the US are just waiting for clarity before they launch blockchain plans. I think they already have like the teams and the tech in place, and I think once we get this clarity in the regulation, it's when it's going to start to really kick off. And I'm speaking with some of the people in industry, and I can already see those plans happening. So,
and we're seeing that already, right? With Chase Bank, for example, they have their own blockchain. If I understand, they have a blockchain infrastructure segment that I think a lot of these banks and institutions have a layer on the back end that maybe isn't publicly or widely distributed, but there is evidence of that being out there. Have you been seeing that more and more up in the banking sphere?
Yeah, it's actually pretty insane. So JP Morgan has the Onyx program. HSBC has, I believe they call it Contour. Fidelity has like FDAS, and they all pretty much have the same thing, which is they have like a crypto custody part. They have a permissioned blockchain, meaning that someone has to like KYC and have permission to use that blockchain. And then they typically have some kind of asset like securitization on the blockchain as well, like putting bonds on the blockchain or equities or something like that. They all have like very, very similar programs. And the permissionless blockchain, I used to write it off because I thought it's useless. Why not just use like a normal database? But the really cool thing about that is, I think the plan there is that they're putting all of this tech in place, and even though it's permissioned and it's not really super useful right now, as soon as the regulation comes into place, they can just flip a switch. They can point that permissioned blockchain to an RPC node that's permissionless, and that can start to become like a real blockchain. And so I think they're actually like further ahead than we probably expect. I mean, banks do move slowly, but I think
we've all personally experienced.
yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then I know one of the main use cases for Transact is making payments infrastructure easier for new users. Has there been any recent developments on the user experience side of things to simplify the process?
Yeah, so exactly right. Our mission is to help these applications to onboard their users. And a few things that we've done there. One is we're starting to roll out a feature called KYC sharing. So some of our partners, they do KYC on their users. We also do KYC on their users. And it's not an optimal user experience for the user to KYC once with that app and then KYC again in order to deposit funds. It just feels intuitively wrong and a waste of time. So we're starting to roll out that feature where partners can just share the KYC with us with the right data security and permissions in place, of course. And that makes the user experience a lot better. Another feature that we're rolling out across some of our partners is called Transak Stream. So what we're doing is, usually when a user places an off-ramp order, they would have to create an order manually. Let's say I want to sell 1 ETH, then and I want to receive it in my Chase bank account, for example. Then they would send the crypto and then they would just receive it in their bank account. Wow. That's the normal off-ramp order. What Transak Stream does is it just gives you a dedicated wallet address, and whenever you send crypto into that wallet address, it automatically creates an order and off-ramps it. So let's say any kind of recurring crypto payment, you can do like recurring off-ramps. If you have like a salary payment coming in, you can have that. So that's another feature that we've been rolling out in some of our partners, and everyone's super excited about it. Then finally, we've also been leaning into like a much more API-based infrastructure product. So a lot of partners are using Transact through like a widget, which is and very simple to integrate. It kind of comes into your app, it pops up as this widget. What the API-based solution does is it allows partners to build their own UI around us. This is typically like bigger companies with more resources, more development resources. And that means that they can integrate Transact in a much more modular way and much more native into their user experience. And so we're leaning into that more and more, and we're seeing that becoming very popular, especially with bigger companies.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I know since Transact works with so many different countries, like so many compliance factors you take into consideration, how do you keep the user experience consistent across so many variables?
Yeah, the truth is it's actually very difficult to do that. So every country is different to onboard users for KYC, for payments, for risk. So the onboarding journey, at least for us internally, typically goes like authentication, KYC, and risk checks, like is this user safe to place a transaction doing fraud, and then payment. Now, authentication tends to be the same across most countries. KYC is very different across many different countries, right? So US, you have SSN checks. India, you have Aadhaar checks. Canada, you have the Interact system. UK, Europe, you have like open banking. You have FinProm in UK, MICA in Europe. There's like so many different things in so many different countries. Transak has more than 10 different entities around the world. We also have dedicated compliance and operations and products in all of those countries, understanding those flows and like optimizing them. So there's no simple solution. The good news is that we take care of all of that and we abstract that for our partners. So the partners don't have to worry about it. Like every time we go live in a new country, the partner gets that for free. It's a lot of work for us, but that's kind of part of the value prop of what we provide. And then similarly on the payment side, we're constantly adding new payment methods, and we our strategy is we want to get as deep into the payment rails as possible. So we want to connect directly with banks in US, UK, Europe, Canada, Australia, Hong Kong, India, and we're kicking off a bunch of new countries for expansion this year as well. And yeah, and so the payment experience is different in all of those countries. You know, some countries are like pull payment methods, which means that you let the merchant pull the money from your account. So kind of like with a credit card or like an ACH pull, that tends to be very, very different from like a push payment, which would be like, let's say, a wire or an ACH push or a faster payments in the UK or like a SEPA payment. That's where the user like pushes it from their bank account. So those are very different operationally. They have very different like risk profiles in terms of like chargebacks, all of that kind of stuff. So we've built a ton of IP in-house and operations and tech to handle all of that stuff globally. And this is maybe not something that people don't see because they see like, oh, it's just this simple little widget. How hard can it be? It's actually very, very complex across the whole world. And we take all of that work and then we just compress it down into this very nice and tidy developer experience that people can integrate.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You mentioned a couple issues with the user experience right now, such as having to KYC twice,
Yeah.
or maybe being limited with what banks can connect, etc. What's your main user experience issue and what's being done to improve that?
I wouldn't say there's one thing. I mean, conversion rate is definitely a metric that we track, but it's a big funnel. And at Transak, we kind of split that down into different teams, and we look at each of those areas separately because it's just too complex to track it all as one thing. On the KYC side, you know, KYC sharing is one of those things. Looking at better vendors, better ways to KYC, because KYC is a requirement from a legal compliance point of view. It's also a requirement from a safety point of view, right? You want to make sure that this person is who they say they are and they're not getting scammed or something like that. Within those limitations, you want to keep like a risk tolerance, but you want to make the user experience as good as possible. So we're constantly looking at ways to do as much verification without like having the user to fill out a bunch of stuff or do a bunch of clicks. We're trying to compress down that journey on the KYC side. On the payment side, we're constantly trying to compress down the journey. And for example, we just integrated open banking in the UK and Europe to so that the user can connect their bank account instead of having to like pay manually. So, wow. So we're constantly like adding features like that. But it's like hundreds or thousands of things that we're doing that just keep improving conversion rates by like 1%. And another really cool thing that we're doing in order to improve user experience and improve conversion is this concept of reusable onboarding or reusable identity and payments. So one very cool thing is we have these over 400 active partners who use us. Anytime a Transak user comes from one application to another app, they have all of their KYC and payments ready to go. So they don't have to go through all of that experience again. They can just basically go in just a few clicks and just onboard into that application. So over time, we're starting to see that become a trend where you have just instant access to this catalog of apps in the Transak network. And yeah, in the long run, we would want to embrace decentralization in order to make that more self-sovereign and more like within the Web3 ethos as well.
Exciting.
Yeah.
It's great to hear.
Yeah.
And as far as with people that are looking to compare Transak to maybe some of your competitors, they're shopping around for on-ramp solutions.
Yeah.
What would you say sets Transak apart?
Yeah, so I think there's two sets of competitors that we have. On the one end, you have like the widget-based on-ramps, so you have like your Banksers and Moonpays and Ramps and those kind of guys. I would say what sets us apart from them is that we have a much more infrastructure-based integration, much more flexible APIs, much more white-labeled integration experience, and our product is a lot more modular. So like an on-ramp widget, it just does one thing, which is like, I'm going to buy crypto. Our developer experience is a lot more flexible in the sense that you can customize how is the authentication done, how is the KYC done, how is the risk checks done, and there's a lot of information that can be shared both ways between the partner and Transak, which makes it much more of a holistic onboarding tool for the partner, and it allows us to support a much wider range of use cases. So let's say like remittance, neobanks, wallets, exchanges, fintechs, RWAs, DeFi, all of that kind of stuff. It makes our products much more flexible. On the other end, there are these kind of stablecoin infrastructure providers, like let's say like a Bridge or a Zero Hash or there's new ones popping up all the time these days. What sets us apart from these guys is we tend to have a much wider range of payment methods, like geographical coverage. So a lot of these guys, they just have like ACH and wire in the US. We have cards, Apple Pay, and different local payment methods in lots of different countries around the world, which a lot of the infrastructure providers don't have. And then on top of that, a lot of these like infrastructure providers, they don't have out-of-the-box KYC solutions, so they require the partner to like do some of their own KYC operations and in-house operations, which in a lot of cases is not suitable, or like the partner doesn't want to touch that data for some reason. So we're sitting somewhere in the middle where we have very like flexible and modular APIs, but also like an out-of-the-box solution that can do the end-to-end onboarding journey.
And since we're here in Miami, have you seen crypto payments becoming more mainstream? Or do you mostly have Web3 type users onboarding to the platform now?
We're starting to see that direction. So I mean, stablecoin payments is already big, and I believe like the stablecoin volume already exceeds like Visa's volume. So there is significant volume on stablecoin networks, and there's over 200 billion of market cap on stablecoins now. So it's definitely becoming mainstream. Like if stablecoins was a fintech startup, it would be like probably the fastest growing fintech startup ever.
Right.
So it's definitely getting adoption. Having said that, I would say we're really starting to see this year, we're really in active deals at the moment with both like Web3 crypto applications who are starting to look a lot more like Web2 applications, in the sense that you kind of feel like I'm like depositing fiat and I'm just earning interest or making payments or that kind of stuff. So the Web3 applications, we have a few deals that we're going to announce in the next few months where it's really going to start to feel more like a Web2 application. And then on the other end, we're starting to also have conversations with Web2 companies, like big famous Web2 companies that you would definitely know, and they're also starting to use like stablecoin infrastructure, and obviously they would still feel like a normal Web2 app. And the theme that we're seeing this year is that blockchain starts to become a back-end infrastructure technology and not a front-end consumer technology. So what I don't see people starting to generally like use crypto and talk about using crypto as consumers, right? That might be common among people like you and me who are like in the industry, but general people, I just don't see that happening this year. What we really do see happening is companies starting to embrace blockchain and stablecoins as part of their backend infrastructure. In the same way that you might leverage AI to make your company better, people are leveraging blockchain to make their company better, and it makes total sense, and it 100% will happen.
Have you noticed any in Miami, like living in Miami and being here, have you noticed personally any flexibility with crypto payments at all here?
Um, I wouldn't say that it's something that I feel like a particularly noteworthy change in consumer behavior. I would say like the big thing that I'm noticing is more on the B2B side. So we're seeing a lot more interest from companies to embrace blockchain technologies. The consumer side, I mean, I don't think consumers really wake up in the morning thinking like, I want to use a blockchain app. They just want to solve their problems, right? I want to remit money internationally. I want to earn some return on my idle funds, that kind of stuff. So yeah, if I'm paying with crypto, it typically tends to be with like my crypto friends, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know we have some Bitcoin ATMs and
Yeah,
our markets and so forth here, but I don't think that
less common. It's much more B2B, much more B2B. Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And as the lines blur between crypto and traditional finance,
Yeah.
how do you see Transact extending over the next couple of years?
So what I see is that blockchain is going to become a back-end infrastructure technology, not a front-end consumer technology, and companies are going to use these rails in order to make themselves better in the back end, but they're going to present a normal Web2 interface to the user, right? So the normal experience of like signing up, KYCing, depositing using like an ACH or like a SEPA or something like that, and that will be powered by fiat on-off ramps, by Transak, and the direction that we're headed is that we're making our product much more modular and white labeled so that it can meet a much wider range of use cases, so that we're much more flexible on how we're doing authentication, we're much more flexible on how we're doing KYC, on how we're doing risk checks, and then also expanding internationally into a much wider range of geographical payment methods. So we're investing heavily into that. And the long-term vision is that any application can onboard users in most of the major countries where they would want to be in one click. Because the user has already onboarded with Transact, they have their KYC, their payment methods set up. We would have that wide user coverage and country coverage, and we would just enable these applications to onboard with one click. So you could like sign up to, let's say, an investing app, and because you're an existing Transact user, you would have all of your KYC payments ready, and that investing app would be using stablecoins in the back end. It would perhaps be using RWAs because we've started to have like securities laws where like stocks can be on the blockchain or bonds could be on the blockchain, and but you won't necessarily know or care about that as a consumer. You'll just have such a like great user experience, and the fees will be lower. The range of financial services that you have will be much higher because it will be so global, right? The blockchain rails is so global. It's just trivial to move money internationally, to access securities internationally. So on the one hand, applications will be able to access global users in one click, and consumers will be able to access global applications in one click. So it will be like basically a new internet for financial applications.
Wow. Incredible. I was just about to ask you what you're personally excited about too in the crypto space. We have so many emerging parts of the industry with meme coins, DeFi, RWAs. What are you personally getting excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I think meme coins are fun, and don't mind having a joke about that, and it's good fun and all that kind of stuff. It's not something that I think is like the future of humanity or something like that, right? Right. It's a bit of good fun. I think what's really important to pay attention to this year is you have like Fidelity releasing a stablecoin this year. You've got the state of Wyoming releasing a stablecoin. This is serious stuff, and this is like serious institutional adoption. And the amount of money that's going to be moving through blockchain rails is going to increase by orders of magnitude this year. So that's what I'm really excited about. The other stuff, it's kind of fun, and I like to kind of follow it and see what's going on. But I think that the movement of existing financial products, such as the US dollar, such as stocks, such as bonds, moving that onto blockchain rails and having real usage of that where it's actually legal and compliant and this is the big thing for me. This is what I'm really excited about. This is what gets me like fired up in the morning.
Incredible. Amazing. Any final thoughts for our audience today?
Move to Miami and come be happy and enjoy the crypto scene out here.
Thank you so much for your time, Sami.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, same here.
Moving to Miami, bringing more of the crypto ecosystem
Sure.
to the sunny city of Miami. So really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And please like, follow, subscribe, and follow Sami on his journey on LinkedIn. Go and follow all the Transak accounts as well for more exciting announcements coming soon. Thank you.